Well, today we have Sean Sweet back on the podcast. Welcome back, Sean. How you doing?
Hey, good, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I like your picture behind you there, the tropical multiple canvas there of the beach. That's nice. That's awesome.
Oh,
A
yeah,
unique way to show it.
I like to pretend I'm somewhere tropical
Somewhere
at all
tropical,
times.
yeah. People, if they're watching on YouTube, they know what I'm talking about. They're listening on the audio version, they have no idea. But you've been on the podcast. We talked about some preteen ministry stuff. It's been a long time, so maybe just give like a reintroduction. And I don't know, is there anything new or different maybe in the last 5 years since the last time we spoke in your life, in your
Yeah.
world?
So let's see. Let's go. 5 years ago, I was still on staff at a church as a preteen pastor.
Oh, that's
And
true.
we had,
Yep.
and 456 was a ministry of that church. Um, since then, the church has given me that ministry and said, "Hey, we want you to take this, turn it into a 501c3, which is a nonprofit that would run as something different than the church." And so I retired from my position at the church and went full time into running the ministry. And what was great about the whole process of transition was the person who took my spot, who became the preteen pastor, was actually a preteen in my ministry who had grown up, gone through our leadership program, all that, came back as an adult volunteer leader, and they got their pastoral license. And it was the easiest, like, here you go. It was the easiest
Yeah.
thing ever to watch, to watch that transition take place. So that's been
That's
great.
awesome.
However, the last couple of months, our church has expanded to a new site, and they brought me back in with some transition pieces that were happening, getting ready to help launch the preteen ministry at the new facility here in the next month.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so that's kind of what's been happening. Just lots of new things from 456. Which, if people don't know, it's 456.org, and it's all resources to help people raise the value of their ministry to preteens. It's all spelled out, FOURFIVESIX. But developing the curriculum there, and one new thing we have, Nick, it's gotten a lot of positives from people, is our leadership program. This is a preteen leadership program. Um,
Okay.
so
That's great.
so that's been great, and we're building it out now to be like a 3-year program,
Uh-huh.
which is we already have it that way at our church, but to
Yeah.
have it available to others. So it's called Team Ion, and
Nice.
it's a leadership program kind of thing.
That's
So
awesome. It's kind of like student ministry, and again, and we'll probably talk about some of this, but it's that preteens, in between kids and students, and a popular thing in student ministry is student leadership and
right.
empowering them and getting them serving, and you're doing that in preteen. That's really cool. Hey, for people that maybe this is brand new, I don't know anybody that hasn't heard of this, but like maybe they haven't done it or they haven't even researched it. Before we get into some of the specifics and some of the trends, what
Uh-huh.
like why have a ministry to preteens? What's the reason churches are doing this? And maybe even what does it look like practically in most churches?
Yeah. So people, when you talk to people, even people who are just starting in children's ministries or whatever, um, people are pretty quick to identify that the older elementary kids are different than the younger elementary kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem a little snarkier, and they're a little more likely to interrupt your service with a question, and not a question like, can I go to the bathroom, but a question like, well, how do we know that God's real? you
Yeah.
know and so their brains are in a different place when they get to fourth, fifth, sixth grade than they were in first grade, second grade. And it's really just a developmental question, to where they're exploring possibilities. They're able to think in abstract terms. They're able to test hypothesis. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Brain Game, Nick,
I don't think
but
so. Have I?
oh, but you can find little clips on YouTube, and
Yeah.
they do these different experiments and things. So they go to the boardwalk, and they ask a group of little kids. They say, "Is it safe to swim with sharks?" And the little kids go, "No." And then they ask a group of adults, "Is it safe to swim with sharks?" And the adults say, "No." And then they ask a group of preteen girls, "Is it safe to swim with sharks?" and one girl goes, well, I don't think they'll naturally come after you. And the other girls are like, yeah, probably if you're, it's probably okay, And the whole point is, at this age, they're exploring possibilities, and they're not. It's not so much about rebelling as it is about exploring, and
Yeah.
their brains are in a place where they can do that, and they couldn't before. They
Yeah.
can question things. So when it comes to spiritual matters, they're starting to ask questions, and it's really an exciting time because they're taking their first steps of faith ownership. They're taking
Mm-hmm.
their first steps of not just telling you the answers to questions based on what they've been told, but telling you the answers to questions based on how they've processed it, if
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, for sure. Practically speaking, what does it look like in most churches? I mean, I know in our church,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
started it I guess 5 years ago now. And, it is in our kids ministry. Ours is fourth and fifth. It exists during every service. So it's basically another environment within kids ministry, but it is a very different feel, different large group, different room, the look of it. Actually, one of my friends the other day was like, text me a picture of your preteen space. Cause they're starting it.
Uh-huh.
They're like, okay, yeah, here you
Uh-huh.
go. So, but I mean, I'm sure it's not all the same, but generally, what do you see it looking like practically at a church on each week?
Yeah, it's so different from church to church. Um, there was a gal named Lynn Krogstad who, for the longest time, was at this tiny church, and so she had, you know, kindergarten to fifth, sixth grade all together. But then she did separate events, and she had they would come in early. The preteens were invited to come in early. She had events that were just for them. And she had like things throughout the year that only those older kids could be a part of. Um, and so it can look like that. It doesn't matter if you have two preteens or 200 preteens. Um,
Yeah.
funny story. I was at a conference, and after I taught a session, this man and woman come up to me, and they were husband and wife, and they said, "Hey, we're taking we just started taking over the children's ministries at this church," and it was Lynn's church, and I'm like, "Oh." I knew Lynn Krogstad. I didn't know she retired. And they said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "She was so great. She had a preteen ministry, and she, blah 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 blah." And she only had like two preteens, and they said, "We know. We were two of them."
Oh, that's cool.
So,
They're two of the
so
two. That's awesome.
yeah. So it's really about just being intentional and creating intentional space for them. It's going to look different depending on your church. Some churches aren't going to be able to give you a beautiful big room.
Yeah.
But it can look like that. It can look like a leadership program that's just for the
Hmm.
fifth graders, right? It can look
Yeah.
like events that you do that are just for your older elementary, or it can look like what you're talking about, where you have a separate space and you're doing intentional teaching that's different than what the youth and what the children are receiving, and you're dealing with things that are just for them. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea too of if you, let's say you can't or aren't ready yet to do the separate environment, that's weekly and it's a whole different thing. The idea of just doing some events and then maybe you get to just test that out and how does that work and is there momentum
Hmm.
built there that would then make the case for having it be a separate thing. But my other question for you is, in many ways, preteen ministry, it's the bridge from kids to students. Like I know when we launched it, part of the vision we would say to the entire church was that they're not ready for student ministry yet, but they're ready for something different than what they've been in
Yeah.
season kids. And in our world, they were kindergarten through fifth grade was in the same large group for years. So 6 years is a long time to sit in the same room, by the time you're that age. So we would say they're not ready for student ministry, but they're ready for something a little different. And again, this is generalities. Every church is different, but largely in children's ministries, they're doing the weekly thing. There are some events you're doing. A lot of them are for the family. And then in student ministry, they're doing their weekly thing, but there's a lot of events. There's trips, there's retreats, there's different gatherings. There's like more additional things, I guess, in addition to the
Hmm.
weekly programming. Preteen ministry could be like a mix. Like, do you think it's good for preteen ministry to have on top of a weekly gathering, if you're in that spot, I don't know if events is the right word, but other ways that you're
Yeah.
engaging them in gathering?
Yeah, for sure. events is a pretty, I think, a pretty important piece of preteen ministry because, um, preteens are taking ownership of stuff, of
Mm-hmm.
their friendships and their relation, just everything, their faith and all that. And so what happens when you have an event is they are deciding whether they're going to come and be a part of that event. They're
Mm.
not coming to church because their parents are going to church and they're just in the same car. They're saying to their parents, "I want you to take me to the church," and there's nothing for the adult to do except drop them off or
Yeah.
volunteer. Um, so events can really be great for preteens in that aspect, in the respect that it gives them a chance to take ownership of their church experience.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that's great about events is the relationship building that starts to become really important for preteens. And I like what you said too about when you do children's ministries events, they're really family events.
Yep. Yep.
But once you get to preteen, now you can do events that are just for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we actually sell an event pack at 456.org because this is such an important piece of preteen ministry, putting on
Yeah.
things that are outside of your Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you don't want to do it too much like student ministry because again, you're student ministry, you know,
Right.
but you don't want to maybe just have the same exact play you're running with kids, but now it's just a different environment. I think that's interesting. I remember my pastor was a youth pastor for years before he ever started our church, and at the last church he was at before our church was started. This sounds silly, but he was a. They used to use like these finger blasters as part of the fun
Oh
games
yeah.
in youth, like those Nerf things.
Yeah.
And one time, kids ministry wanted to use them, and he was like, "No, you can't. Like, there needs to be certain things that are distinct. Not because, and it doesn't even matter if they're finger blasters or something else. But what are the things that can be distinct in each world that kids can relate to or look forward to or whatever that is?" And I think he's
Right.
right about that. So I love that. Like in our world, we try to have some kids things, we try to have some preteen things, and then we try to have some student things, and there's some similarities, there's some overlap, but there's also differences. Like I'm probably not doing Gaga Ball in our preteen because like you get that in middle school. You know what I mean? Like wait till middle
I
school and you
see.
can get
Yeah.
that. Do you agree with that? Is that a strategy you think is important to just certain things are in certain areas only?
I think so that there's something for the kids to look forward to doing when
Yeah.
they move up to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be different from church to church too. Like we have Gaga Ball in our preteen thing, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not something that our youth has set up, right? They have
Okay.
like
Yeah.
this little indoor football field that they get to use, and
Yeah.
so I think you're right that it is good to have these things that they're looking forward to in the next grade or in the next class, right?
Yeah.
But that's going to differ from church to church.
Yeah.
When we started doing events, we just did things that the youth weren't doing, right? Like
Yeah.
a slime night and a maze. We do like this maze night where we get Uline. You can order a ton of cardboard boxes for really cheap, and we just create these elaborate mazes, and the kids, the preteens love that, and that's not really something that high schoolers are gonna,
Yeah.
be as excited about, cardboard box mazes or whatever.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned, when you started doing this and now it's been 16 years or something like that. What are you seeing currently, and is any of it different in preteen ministry than what you all were doing and other churches were doing 15, 16 years ago?
Yeah, so 2008, um, you know, well, I'll tell you this, Nick. I was a school teacher. I taught fourth and fifth grade for 7 years. And so when I went on staff and we had first through fifth grade all together, I was like, this is impossible. Like, I can entertain them all. I can tell a compelling story. And people would say, "Oh, just aim at the fifth graders, and the younger kids will be fine." And you've probably heard something like that too. And it's like, well, yeah, but as far as intentionally discipling them, you can't you just can't.
Yeah.
They're in two different places, and they need two different things. So when we first separated our preteens out, and that was 2008, and I gave myself a self-induced demotion. I went from birth. I was over birth through fifth. I said, can I just be over fourth and fifth? Which I know
All
that's
right.
kind of backwards to what most people
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when I started that, I was like, I want to go to a conference for preteen ministry leaders. Well, that wasn't a thing in 2008.
Yeah.
And it was even hard to find track or classes about preteen ministry at National Children's Ministries conferences, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, fast forward now to where we are now, there are resources for preteens. Like most publishers with their curriculums, they'll try to do something for the preteens, right? They'll try to have
Sure.
some kind of,
Yeah.
even like I saw a VBS, and they had a preteen component to it, right? Like there's much more awareness of preteens now than there was back in 2008. There's more resources for people now than there were in 2008. And I'm finding more churches now are having some kind of Club 56 or Club 45 or,
Mm-hmm.
The Edge
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah. Sure.
than when I first started. And even just being at conferences, we will have a booth
Yeah.
and people will come by and be like, what's a preteen? Like, is that junior
Yeah.
high? And just, that was 2008, 2009. And now it's like just about everybody that comes by, they've got something going for their preteens, something.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
might just be events that they do just for them or a leadership program or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I think the church is waking up to the fact that these kids have needs that are different than the younger kids and different than the older kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
yeah.
you think? So here's another question for you. Most preteen ministries I run into now are leadership wise, structure wise, whatever. They're under the kids ministry. Some, every now and then, some I see they're under the student ministry. Like, do you have a preference? Do you think it matters? Is it just about leadership? And I told you before we hit record, the one that I've observed that was under the student ministry, I thought, this should be under kids. Like, it's a little too student-like, and it's on Sunday during your service, and, but, yeah, I don't know if it is right, or if one's right, one's wrong, whatever, but do you have an opinion about that?
I do. So there's this philosophy. It's let go and run beside, right? And so there's a book, Let Go and Run Beside. And the whole idea is that if somebody's going to learn to ride a bike, there comes a place where you have to let go, but they're not ready. Like they're ready developmentally, but they're not ready experientially, right? So we don't just let go, we also run beside. And this is preteen ministry when it, in terms of faith development, they're ready for us to let go and let them start taking ownership of their faith decisions and their faith walk and all that. But they're not ready. They're ready developmentally, but not experientially. So we run beside and we're an ever-present guide. So that makes preteen ministry different than children's ministry and different than youth ministry. The preteen ministries that I've seen run by children ministry minded people, they have a harder time with the letting go piece.
Sure.
The ones that are run by the youth ministry, they have a harder time with the run beside piece.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just
Makes sense.
right? And so to me, it's its own thing. It is something different. And at our church, we've been able to carve that out. It's a ministry that isn't children's ministry and it isn't youth ministry.
Yeah.
It's its own department. It's its own thing. And it seemed, it might seem to people like, why a ministry? It's just 3 years or 2 years of their life. Why would that be a separate ministry? But it really is a different thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have.
So that's my opinion. My opinion is neither.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I don't know what size your church is, but sometimes if it's large enough, that's where I do see that, because they just, like, in fact, I'm working with a church to help them hire a next-gen pastor. It's a very large church, and their structure is going to be a kids pastor reports to this next-gen pastor, a preteen pastor, and a student pastor. So they really are treating it like it's its own, and the college. And so they really are treating it like its own thing. But a lot of churches I run into, like, they only have a kids and a youth pastor, or even if they have more than one in each area, they're still sticking preteen in one of them. They're not. That's interesting. They're not putting it as its own thing.
Right. Yeah. So in those cases, like, and even there's churches where the children's ministry ends at 5th grade and youth starts at 6th. So you really have preteens in both. Oh, excuse me.
Yep.
Sorry. So you really have preteens in both. You have
Yeah.
the fifth graders and then the sixth graders are in youth, right? So I think in that case, wherever it falls and how, whatever decision is made, if it falls under children's ministries, they have to push the envelope when it comes to letting go. And if it falls under youth, they have to make extra effort to run beside. And so I think it can work in both. It can work in children's and work in youth if the people are thinking in those terms of like, okay, these sixth graders are not where our 10th graders are. And we need to do more to guide them. We need to have more where we sit down with just them and, help them understand things, give them a little more guidance than we're going to our junior hires and high schoolers. And if it's in children, we need to give them more, freedom, give them an event that their parents don't come to, so.
Yep. Last question for you. And I'm guessing you're not really going to answer it, but I know churches do different things, but like in terms of grades, is there a favorite? Do you like 5th, 6th? Do you like 4th, 5th? I don't know if
4th, 5th, 6th.
You like all three?
Yeah, I think 4th, 5th, 6th is good. 4th grade, the first half of the year, they're pretty, especially the boys, pretty squirrely, pretty immature. They're not quite at ready to do the things that preteens are ready to do. But I think the exposure is good for them that first half of. But by it's weird. Like they, after Christmas, I don't know what changes. They open the present of maturity or something.
They grow up a little bit.
Second half of 4th grade, that's where I see them really starting to be like, okay, now you're a preteen. 6th grade, I'd say the second half of the year, it's like, okay, their hormones have taken over. Reason has left the building.
Nice.
So
you like 6th grade, especially the early part being in there.
Oh, I think that's such a great time. In fact, the only story of Jesus in the Bible as a kid was when he was 12, which is basically a 6th grader. And there's something really magical and special about that age. Even in Jewish tradition, right? There's ceremonies and things with 12-year-olds because there's something about that age that's just really exciting. So
I see a lot of 4th, 5th, 5th, 6th, not a lot of 4th, 5th, and 6th. You know what I mean? Like I don't really see all three. But
we moved to 4th, 5th, 6th, and then we do separate things for our 6th graders on top of that. So they have their own class on top of that.
Yeah. In your area, is junior high a thing, like 7th and 8th, and 6th graders are in elementary? Is that how that works?
Well, this is really interesting. Where our church is, we're between a bunch of districts, and some of those districts have 6th graders in elementary school. Some of those 6th graders have middle schools, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so we really, it's like, okay, are 6th graders going to feel, bad that when they come to church, they're with younger kids, but then when they go to school, some of them are with older kids. And we just decided we're not going to let the way the schools are set up determine how we, split up the kids. And for us, it didn't really matter anyway, because one way or another, we're not going to match some of those kids' experience.
Yeah, we are lucky where I am. Everything's middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th, everywhere. Elementary and 5th grade, doesn't matter if it's private school, public school, this county, that county. You don't have that. I've noticed, but on the West Coast, that's sick. Like junior high's a thing on the West Coast, Arizona, like 7th, 8th. That's pretty common. It's not here in the Northeast.
I think if people are worried about their 6th graders feeling like they're being held back, if they're not pushing their 6th graders into youth, but then they do have middle school kind of thing. That hasn't been my experience. Like 6th graders who are in middle school, but they're still in our preteen ministry, I think they kind of appreciate having a place where they're not bottom man on the totem pole, where they
one more year. Yeah.
They get one more year of being the big kid.
And then when they're 7th, 8th, it's only 2 grades. It's not even like it's that big of a top end or a bottom end anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Well, how can people connect with you? Obviously 456, the website you mentioned, all spelled out. You already mentioned you have like event kits, curriculum resources. Yeah. What else?
We have a conference. It's in February that we do. We're excited to be in Houston again this year and next year too. We'll be in 2025, and pretty much the hub for all this stuff is 456.org. The leadership program, we have a 3-year curriculum as well. And if people want to email, if they have questions or, they want to disagree about things or,
Yeah.
or whatever, they are welcome to email me at Sean, SEAN, at 456.org. So we love to help people. We even have a thing called Launchinar, where if you are starting a preteen ministry or wanting to start a preteen ministry, we do 3 months of individualized coaching for you to help you figure out. Because like you said, Nick, a lot of times my answer is, well, it depends.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So we want to help people figure out for their context what's going to make sense for the preteens that they serve. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you get to do this full time now, and it's a ministry outside the church. That's got to be a lot of fun, and you got your preteens running things back at the church, but you're still in it, which is nice as you launch a campus. Keep you close to it. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, Nick. It's an honor.